explore that more broadly. Next slide, please. That's all right. So we're going to ask 3 aspects. We're going to talk about the state of current youth work, university-based, professional-led. We're going to think about how the past informs the present. And we're also going to think about what insights this might have for future directions. And as I said, we're not going to be prescriptive. I'm not a soothsayer, but we're going to open up some of the complexities and some of the tensions that map this boggy terrain. And with that, I'm going to tag team you in, Mike, now. Let me do.
Got a little thing that says F, which has been right. So I can have the next
slide, yeah.
Where are we at?
There we go.
A little bit of history. Probably in the kind of early 90s, there were probably about 10 to 12 courses, depending on how you measured it. And then there was quite a big expansion, which probably coincided, not coincidentally, with New Labour coming in and bringing in some kind of youth. And the massification and expansion of higher education that happened. So probably at its high point, there was something like 55, I think, institutions. I think there's 122 HEIs in the UK and about 50. So it's about just under half did youth. Now it's down to 35. 20 institutions have closed their courses in the last 5 years. So those are kind of blunt stats. And so, you know, if you're looking at the wider context of it, as Finn was saying, if you look at youth services have been cut by 69%. You know, so it's been massive cuts for youth services. And the spending on young people has been cut. So that, you know, they feed into each other and stuff. There's also about where youth and community work courses are taught. I'm sure in your countries it's not an equal hierarchy of institutions in terms of what's seen as prestigious or not. Now, whether you buy into that is a different question. But most, I think almost exclusively, apart from maybe 1, 2, depending how you measure it, of those 35 institutions, they're all what they call post-92 universities, which basically means they're all new universities, yeah, which tend to be very teaching intensive. They tend to be not so much research intensive, but positively are often widening participation students. Whereas in prestigious universities, that has systematically failed. Most elite universities do not take widening participation students. They try to say they do, and when they do, they fail badly. So that's the kind of context. Can I have the next slide?
Yeah. So, and let's redo that. So basically, there's a number of enduring tensions. So when I'm on long journeys, I like to read Iliad's Disabling Professions. So I'm not kind of nostalgic about this idea of the growth of professions in the mid-20th century. I'm aware about the bureaucratisation of the agency of the state and relationships to communities. So I'm aware that history has been laid ribbon with a number of key tensions. And we're not going to cover them all, but they tend to be around things like, are we doing educational training? Where's the place for vocational education? Or are we making professions, or is it a vocation? Where's the practice theory divide? Do we need all these high conclusive theories about experiential practice? Is that the most important? What are universities for, and are they worth the money? Surely, particularly in the UK, that's possibly one of the most expensive higher education systems that individualises personal debt. We can't be surprised where so-called non-traditional students, I hate that term, people who are mature students, people coming from working class communities, black and minority ethnic students are not particularly desperate to laden themselves with 50, 60, 70,000 pounds of personal debt. Yeah. So we have to understand that this is a system that reproduces massive inequalities. Yeah? So it's about thinking about this more broadly. And these are tensions that are perhaps unbridgeable, but that frame the broader terrain when we're thinking about what constitutes appropriate training/education. Over to you. Next slide, please.
Okay, so look, I suppose these are the big debates to have. Because you could just turn around and go, why would we have training youth and community workers in higher education? Higher education is hierarchical, it's elitist, it's quite restrictive, what was useful, and it's also highly individualised, both in terms of how we conceptualise students, but also in terms of what it is to progress as a academic. I remember years ago, I sat down in my first academic conference. I was like, I sat next to somebody who was a professor, and I didn't actually even know what that was. And I just said to him, I said, well, what does that mean? And how do you get to be that? And I always remember his answer. He went, be selfish. That's how you get to be.
Yes, Professor Mike.
Now, I'd like to hope, maybe make judgments, I haven't become that, but yeah, he said you be selfish, you do as little teaching as you can, you don't tell people what you're doing, you can make sure that your name goes on your students' publications, all of those things that people can go and do.
You've learned well, Mark.
Yeah, I've done any of them things, honestly. But it does beg the questions of should you do that? Which is that purpose of what is the meaning and purpose of university? Does it achieve widening participation? And probably hopefully this is the argument we're making. Do universities generally? No. They systematically fail black students, they systematically fail women, all of that stuff. If you just look at the stats, and it is terrifying. Yeah. And it hasn't got better with any of the initiatives that have come. A little bit here and there, but largely it's not, because there's a structural issue going on. Positively, youth and community work has historically been a bit better at that. You know, our black students don't always fail. Our working class students can do better. Not always. It's not an even picture, but that can happen. But there is a big chasm. There's also a big chasm about, you know, do we want to have parity with other professions? And if you do, that means you need to go to universities. I remember, does anyone, the UK people, remember it used to be at certificate level, and then it became diploma, and then it became degree? You know, and it's interesting, was that a good move? It gave us professional parity, which was good in one way, but it also meant that local authorities who were teetering on the edge of going, can we support people? And they suddenly had to move from supporting people to do 3 years to 5. They just went, not going to happen. And they stopped. I personally will trace a lot of the demise of these courses to the point where we became degree education. Whether that's a good thing or not. Beyond apprenticeships, you know, again, historically, apprenticeships are coming into the UK. Big debates about whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But in some ways, it's not new. Because what it's saying is people will do a job and then they'll get day released to do a degree somewhere or an apprenticeship. That used to be our bread and butter, you know, exactly what we did. Yeah, when I first started, I used to teach at Newman University, and I taught at the YMCA George Williams before that. And most of our students were part-time, got day release, came in and did stuff. And then suddenly part-time slowly. And it just became full-time. So, chasm or overlap. Can I have the next one?
I think we could both speak. Oh, you go for it.
There you go.
Okay, we can go for it. But basically, we're thinking here that there's a number of ambiguities and anxieties that kind of frame these key debates, not just about youth work education, but we're also going to talk a bit about social work and teacher education. These are issues that are covering the entire profession. So we have ambiguities regarding the place and purpose of youth work. So lovely, it's always the case. What even is youth work? You know, there's ongoing, perhaps tired debates. Anxieties regarding youth work. Are we atheoretical? Do we need more rigor? And then during, concerns about whether our students are fit for purpose. There's also a tension about whether, who are the employers? Does an employer-driven approach provide a space for a professional who has international cachet, has international legitimacy, or are they just thinking about their very local and very temporal context? Yeah, that's short-driven, that's short-term goals. Yeah. Because surely we wouldn't want purely employer-driven approaches that handcuff future youth work professionals to one organisation, on one kind of work, on one kind of context, without ensuring them for their long-term career that might be 30 or 40 years.
The only other thing I'll say about apprenticeships, degree apprenticeships, it very changes that relationship of who it is. You know, the employer is your customer. Yeah. And what that kind of means is things like, I mean, when I worked and people used to get, they used to come, they'd say, what grades are people getting?
Yes, get that.
Are they turning up? And you'd say, what are they saying? Can we see their essay?
Yes.
All that kind of stuff. And sometimes what their essays would say into my placement is terrible, the management, this, you know.
With reports for bosses.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm having ethical dilemmas about some of the things that they're doing, because that's what makes for good education, isn't it? But if you do an apprenticeship, previously I could say, our relationship is not with you. Yes, it is with you, but our fundamental relationship is with the student. No, you can't.
And it's surprising how many times the employers phone up programme directors to demand background feedback about students. Happens quite a lot more than you imagine. But obviously, most employers are always benign. But sometimes not all employers are benevolent and kind to all of their workplace employees all of the time. We're not surprised by that.
That before we move on to the next one, just that thing about fit.
Yeah.
There's always been for those who lectures in for higher education, yeah. So a few people.
No. No.
Do you feel you're fit?
Fit for purpose?
Fit for purpose is another question.
Yeah.
We are now at the junction where our programmers are youth and community.
Okay.
We are reviewing it now because we are facing a decline. We're not getting the numbers.
Okay.
And we know there is a need for training, but the employer, like National Youth Council, the Youth and Sport Department, doesn't see the need to invest in their staff. Just like you were saying, they started off, we have like 5 full-time, but they were teachers. Yeah. They are teachers who are teaching in secondary school, felt the need to understand the secondary school students. So that's our number. But the youth workers working with the crux of the matter.
So there's 2 questions there. Is that, do you fit as in youth work within higher education? And how has it been declined and disappeared? And the other one is, do you fit for you? You know, I mean, even though I have this silly title of professor now, I'm still waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder going, Mike. Yeah. You don't belong there. Off you go. You know, now, some of that is about the nature of being working class person going into university, but some of that is about being a youth community lecturer. You know, do we fit within this subject? Because it doesn't neatly fit into anything, and we're probably horrendously seen as problematic.
That's a good question. This is you, Mike. It's not the Commonwealth.
Jumping around. So this is all very interesting. What is this relevance has this got for those in the Commonwealth? I was at a stakeholder meeting on Sunday, and it was really interesting what people were saying. There's a definite desire to do more higher education. People want to do more degrees and other courses in higher education, I believe. And that was a really heartening decision. But some of the debates that people were having were very similar. You know, so it's questions like, what do you want to develop in your countries? I think the Commonwealth already has a diploma. Do you want it to be a degree? Do you want it to be a master's degree? And why? You know, who is it you're trying to attract? What level and length should it be? We were saying, you know, we celebrated it becoming a degree just at the point where it sunk us. But on the other level, there is something I think about, you need to do it for a certain amount of time. We'll come back to this. To become critical, a critical reflective practice on a true level is not a quick process. And even if people are doing it instinctively, because I do believe in the organic intellect, all that has. But to be able to engage with the systems that you need to do as a youth worker is complex. So I do think it shouldn't just be a 6-month quick conversion course. It sells it short. But there is that question of what is it there for? What should it be to have integrity? Who should be teaching it? Yeah. It's an interesting one. Most people who teach it in the UK don't have doctorates. Yeah? People don't come in with doctorates. We've got very low level of people having PhDs, you know, which is a good thing, I think, personally. But it also makes you vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Yeah.
You know, we don't tend to do research as much because we want to make sure the practitioners are working, which makes you vulnerable. Yeah, we don't tend to write as much as we maybe should because we haven't got time, because we're just making sure the practitioners are good. And if you don't write, you become vulnerable. So I think there's questions about who should be teaching it. In the UK, you at least half of your staff team needs to be JNC qualified. Apart from you don't. Well, there's always ways around this. Never simple as that. And then there's all those questions of what is the core knowledge, you know, like we were saying, it's, you know, what is the core things people need to do? Do we diversify when people want to go to other professions? Do we try and draw people from other professions? All of those questions, which are really good and great. But when does that actually mean any kind of sense of identity and coherence of this, what is youth work, which we ask ourselves all the time? When does that lose coherence? When do we become so diffuse that it doesn't mean anything anymore? And the question I'd ask is, who's going to pay for it? And what relationship do you all do? I think we've just given a couple of illustrations of how that can hit at the heart of the edge.
So we're not the first people to think about this. There's been ongoing issues and ongoing reflection on this for a long time. This is John Holmes back in 2007. He talks about the fraught nature. Simon Bradford's also written about this, these fraught areas. We've been driven in and out of university several times before. And what we see is that often they're seen as ill-equipped, ill-prepared, not fit for purpose. These are plus change. So if we go to the next one. So, for example, I've got 2 quotes here. Let's guess the date, right? Let's guess the date. It's quiz time. Here we have, employers have been vocal regarding the failings of new recruits emerging from universities, their heads full of theory and clueless about doing jobs in the real world. Versus, later inspection report identified overcrowded curricula, courses doing little to provide a background of general culture and personal interests, and students have scantiness of reading and a scarcity and inadequacy of placement locations. Students' competence was also criticised. What year? What decade do we think?
70s and 90s.
70s and 90s. All right. Got 70s, 90s. Anyone on this side? Last one. Last month. Right. Anyone at the back? What decade are we going to be looking at? 2000 something, okay? Which one? Okay, so this was written in 2007 and this was written in 1945. So, plus or change. We've always been seen as having our heads full of theory, not fit for practice, a bit rubbish and a bit incompetent. Okay, so how do we claim that back? For example, Simon Bradford here argues that in the 90s and 40s and 50s, there was a big debate about what universities were for. The same debate that's happening currently with the post-Auger review and the rationing of university. Most countries are trying to expand who goes to university as a way of nation building. Yeah? Except in the UK, where we want less people to go to university. Fewer. Sorry. I'm not educated. Thank you for that. So fewer people to go to university. Can you tell us the first family to go to university? because we're a bit worried about what the university does. Does it make critical voters? What happens when working class people become educated? So there's big tensions about what happens. And again, these concerns that they were badly run, not fit for purpose, and where was the right location and what was the right content? Now, if we go to the next slide, so we can see this, and we've talked about this before, this sense of unease. This was you, Mike.
How was it? You,
Yeah.
you started. You
So-
keep going.
This is what you said.
Ah,
Do you remember
oh, yeah,
writing
yeah,
this?
Yeah, I do,
Okay.
yeah.
So, as Mike has written, there's often been an ease about youth work's place in the academy. What are youth workers doing? They don't have doctorates and they're precarious, often in precarious parts of the university that can be easily cut. Yeah, if we go to the next slide, please. So I think this is you, isn't it?
I think I've covered most of them.
Okay.
Go to the one after. Just a few of the things that we might have. Youth work services have, I don't think we did. I was talking to a colleague who was at an Ofsted inspection the other. Youth work courses. So, I don't know if people know, and an Ofsted, I think, has been questioned before. Multiple people have been quite questioned it. If you do an apprenticeship, you will be subject to the UK, will bring in Ofsted. Just something to be with. And that is a deep worry. Lots of tension. Which everyone to imagine in the future. These are the things that people are discussing at the moment. Because there is this contradiction, because, and I think Lee has said, you know, there's a lot of people who want JNC workers. Yeah. It's crying out saying you need these workers. It is a more complicated picture because often the workers they want, you know, they'll pay them. We want JNC workers because we recognise the quality that that gives you. But we don't really want to pay JNC conditions.
You get paid going little.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we give you a contract for 9 months. And I don't think want to do that. Got our attention. But there are questions to think. To be fair, things like NYO are trying to push that and develop it and make it different. But those are some of the difficult issues. These are things that are up for discussion at the moment. You know, should we develop specialist routes for schools, health, FE partnerships, apprenticeships, teach first, frontline? These are kind of teach first, frontline. You know, you're chucked in to be a social worker and into a teacher, and then you learn stuff afterwards. And sometimes they work, sometimes there's some great stuff, but they're highly controversial. These are the discussions that we're going.
Generally teach first and frontline. They tend to want candidates from privileged backgrounds, Russell Group, Cambridge, Oxford. It's an assumption that these are the elites. You want the elite people to come into your profession and then perhaps move on. That was the historical background. They are diversifying now, but that was sort of the early critique. Yeah.
So, things about conversion courses, having APL, so that people get accreditation for farming.
Okay, it's just that you're not talking about apprenticeships. That here, this country, it's quite the apprenticeships work quite significant. The amount of time people spend.
What about whether they're here or how they're developing it?
I mean, at HE perspective, that you're that's what I'm giving. So I just wondered why you can't.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of the examples of things that we're doing, and yeah, they've developed it such that there are apprenticeships that you can do for you. And the advantage of it is there is money to pay for people to do it, so you can have money to be able to do it. And in some ways, that makes total sense because it means people don't have 50 grand in debt. Jobs when they're never sure it's going back. Universities are looking at trying to see if they can develop it. As I said, there are issues with it. I mean, I think there's some good advantages, and there's a number of people who are developing apprenticeships and doing it quite well. It does change the relationship. Yeah. The people who need to come into it need to be doing 30 hours a week. Yeah. They need to be forced the whole period of reports. Whether that's realistic is an interesting. There are examples where it is in schools and private health authorities where that's possible. Also, universities get less money. That's a big sticking point, and that's a big resistant point for universities, because they would make from the average about 30 grand. If they're doing it through an apprenticeship, they would get 20. And actually, if you look at how that works out in terms of extra things that they need to do for the apprenticeship, a lot of universities do. This is the structures are also big. If anyone is in the UK, we have an apprenticeship working group, and universities and other employers are finding ways to work through this. But I don't think it's that panacea. It's like anything. I think it will work for some people in some ways, but it's not going to make everything. The other problem is, when I talk to local authorities right across the country, they'll say, yeah, but I want this apprenticeship. I've been waiting for it. It's going to be great. I go, how many workers have you got? Well, I've got about 5 who want to do it. Yeah, or maybe I'll have 10 who want to go. How about next year? Well, no, because that will have trained all the workers we've got.
Can it be done on a regional basis?
Yes. Possibly.
I mentioned that because Frontline are doing exactly that.
Right, okay, yeah. And that's where there are possibilities to do that. There are possibilities. And, I think with all of, and probably I wasn't trying to derive things like Teach First and Frontline. They're wrestling with a lot of those issues in a similar way and finding ways to get integrity. It is difficult. It is problematic. Is that okay? Yeah.
Open maybe some questions to the floor.
That's what I was going to do about what's important about it. Is there anything special about HE? Does it matter? Yeah. Does it matter that it's done in HE? Personally, I think it can be done somewhere else, but there are things I'd want to preserve. One thing I learned from going to university was what I'd probably call getting a sociological imagination. It made me curious about the world and curious about myself and the position I was. And I think that's something that university can do. But not just university. If it is done out in the sector, then let's try and find ways to preserve that you keep that critical edge and develop that criticality and a sociological theoretical imagination. Because otherwise it can be very technocratic. And it's interestingly, having taught in HE for quite a long time, I think youth and community work is this bizarre thing of having, it can be quite snobbish about certain aspects of it, and at the same time being anti-intellectual, sometimes in the same sentence. But I think there is something about preserving that imagination. And it links into things I think you were saying about cultural competence.
It's cultural competence within and beyond a work base. You can work across. I think a really important one that's been picked up in both social work degree apprenticeships is the tensions around international recognition. If you are going to qualify, you want to be qualifying that people will recognise you, and you're in a broader debate with, say, social workers around the world, with youth workers around the world, not just in your bit of Yorkshire or your bit of England or your bit of the UK or wherever you are. That kind of broader debate, and that's really important. But it's also really important in having parity with other professions. I mentioned Rotherham here. There was a real issue of child sexploitation in Rotherham, and the whistleblowers were youth workers. And as Louise Casey noted, one of the reasons that youth workers didn't get listened to was the hierarchy of professions, where some professions had legibility and legitimacy and were afforded that in terms of their professional discernment. And youth workers were seen as the bottom of the pile. Now, whether we like that or not, we have to get real. That one of the things we need to do, therefore, is actually see these markers of elite esteem, whatever you think about that, and take them on so you can claim knowledge and legitimacy, okay? And internationally, but also this kind of cultural competence and professional discernment, whatever we think of those broader professional debates that Ilyich was talking about in the mid-20th century. And then finally,
that's what I was going to do. Is I think you don't have to be in universities to do this, but it is generally even in teaching intensive places, seen as part of your job. Whether you get time to do it is a different question. But to create knowledge about what is youth work, what matters, all that stuff. So to do research, to publish, to get out the body of knowledge that we draw on. You know, whereas if in other training, my background was as a trainer, you wouldn't necessarily do that as part of your job. You might choose to do it at weekends, but you wouldn't have it as part of your job. So there's a loss that we'll have. And the thing about research and knowledge is, if we don't create it, somebody else will.
So I think that's where we need to end on, because I saw our moderator's eye, but that we've gone through a huge amount of the history of youth work from the mid-1940s onwards. I hope that's been helpful. You've taken something away. And thank you for your patience.
I do apologize for cutting this scintillating discussion short. But we do have another presenter who has been very patient and is here with us this afternoon to deliver her presentation that we do not want to miss anything about as well. And so without further ado, we just had a conversation from our two esteemed panelists about, is there a future for youth work training in higher education in the UK? And we want to expand that. This is a Commonwealth conference, and of course we have varying regions and varying contexts. And so we're going to turn our eyes from Europe to the Pacific. And so Dr. Bradley Chad is here. She's going to deliver a presentation talking about Pacific partnerships for youth empowerment and resilience. And she's going to talk about how PACFOLD and the COL, you'll know what those acronyms mean in a minute, are harnessing the power of open distance and flexible learning. To provide some context, the Pacific Island nations are confronted with two significant challenges. The first is to anticipate and mitigate the effects of climate change and to build resilience in their countries and institutions. The second is to train their youth for the emerging world of work, where sustainable skills are essential for employability and enterprise development. The Pacific Center for Flexible and Open Learning, PACFOLD, for Development, a collaborative center based at the University of the South Pacific, operated in partnership with the Commonwealth of Learning and is actively engaged in addressing both of the two challenges. PACFOLD is helping institutions build resilience in the face of climate disasters and pandemics, and it is also leading a multi-stakeholder effort with the COL to build skills amongst youth in the region, involving academia, institutes for teacher training, as well as technical training and community-based organizations in 9 of the small island developing states. Since the COVID-19 closures, PACFOLD has partnered with the COL to build capacities amongst young people in these 9 countries on a wide range of skills, from soap making to organizing organic food processing. And their emphasis is on reaching out to youth, including young women and those with disabilities, using an inclusive approach through open, distance, and flexible learning. And so without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Rajni Chad, who is from the University of the South Pacific and Director for the Center of Flexible Learning. Please make her feel welcome.
Hello, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to give a background to where the University of the South Pacific sits. It's a regional university owned by 12 South Pacific countries. And for that reason, the position of the university is very important for all of these countries, given the fact that nearly all of these countries are very small. Population-wise, Fiji would be the largest with the infrastructure and its location, and that is where its main campus is. It is also a member of the Commonwealth. Then we have the Commonwealth countries, out of which there are some who are USP member countries, and there are others who aren't. Then we have MFAT, which has some of the other countries which are neither Commonwealth or may not be USP member countries. So USP's position in that way was like a bridge between Commonwealth of Learning and MFAT, as well as the regional importance or the demands that the regional countries have. The university was established in 1968, and it is the one just after University of PNG. And it has actually, over time, provided the kind of trade, the skills and education for all of these countries, because none of the other countries have a very large university. Only recently, some of these countries like Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Tonga are opening their own national universities. However, the trade skills where it is concerned or providing support for the youth are concerned, it is still very difficult or challenging for these regional countries because they lack the trains. They lack the staff who would be involved. They also lack the institutions which can actually provide support. Another thing we need to keep in mind is none of these country, national or even the regional university have any youth program. Like the way you could say it is in UK, funding is an issue. The interest is an issue. And again, if the youths can get a job without their certificate, why would they want to get? So the demand isn't there, the funding isn't there, the trainers aren't there. So even though we have had a couple of memorandum of agreements with Commonwealth Youth projects, nothing took place, nothing eventuated. Then we had COVID. Before that, in 2018, there was a memorandum of agreement signed between MFET and COAL to provide kind of what you can say e-confidence building in the region. And then we had COVID. That was the time it was realized that there is another way to provide the support and the training which is necessary in the region itself. And that was through the e-education. And that is where the Center for Flexible Learning that I had, as well as the PECFOL, which is the regional Commonwealth Center, designed and approached the various TVET NGO partners to see how we can provide the kind of necessary skills or training for youths and people, as has been mentioned earlier, on how to actually become more confident and get something or do something for themselves if they are without a job, without a certificate, and they need something in order to actually make a living. So the 5-year project covers all of the countries that I have mentioned, as well as the countries which are New Zealand partners, like Cook Islands, which isn't a Commonwealth country. But then we have Commonwealth countries which are not USP members, like PNG. So there was a way to actually connect between all of these, and the partnership actually mentioned the thing of how technology could be enhanced for training. And because USP is the one university in the region which had all the facilities, whether we had to provide by print, online, face-to-face, or any other methods that we are necessary possible. And because we had campuses in all of these countries, we managed to provide the kind of support and the hub for the training, which could be actually done. So we had with COAL, the partnership. However, nothing could actually happen due to COVID. And then last year, we accelerated the program. We tried to do as much as possible to see how we can actually provide the support for the youth, with those with gender disparities and those who are excluded due to disability. And I'm not talking about one country. I'm talking about all of these countries. And I'm talking about very small population. And the most vulnerable are the ones who are totally ignored at the national level itself. So where do they go? They don't have the skills, they don't have the funding, they don't have the know-how. There is no way they can get any kind of support. And at times, the stigma attached to whatever their title is makes it very difficult to get trained. So that is where we realize there would be other ways in which they can be provided the training, and they can actually enhance the confidence or get better in the way they are doing things. So what did we do to provide the support for the youth employment? We had the skills and leadership training. And in this, we had an agreement with one of the NGO in Fiji called FRIEND. It actually provides quite a lot of support for women in low income areas in Fiji. And they have become very popular where organic farming, soap making, and all sorts of these things are concerned. They have provided that what you could say the bridge where their pickles, their chutneys, their handicraft, their organic produce can be actually shared with the market in the packaging that could make it attractive because they didn't have that skill. So through this project, we actually worked with friends on how they can train youths through their organization itself, because they were the network, they knew the people in the community itself. It's very difficult for universities personnel to go out and provide or get that type of a link, which is necessary. We have to go down to the grassroots level. And this was the link that we could find in Fiji. So they trained people on soap making, business management, farming, and food processing. And we had 300 participants in the first phase of training that we took place. And this actually happened in Fiji. Then we did the other one, which was called the TVET training for youth. And this was again looking at marginalized women, youth, persons with disability. And we designed the toolkit, which the TVET trainers could use in their own institutions. Now, we are looking at the time when all TVET institutions closed down due to lockdown. The training was totally misfunction. It wasn't happening. They didn't have the training. They didn't have the resources which was necessary. So we designed an online toolkit which could be offloaded as well and used offline. And we actually worked with the trainers. So I'm not sure if anyone knows, we have things like Montfort Boys Town. We would have other religious organizations who have training centers. Now, these trainers didn't have the resources, but they still needed to go down and teach those unemployed youths in their small village on how to actually get some skill. So we, in cooperation with these trainers, designed the toolkits which they could use. They could also alter it and use it in their own language. And I'm not talking about just Fiji, I'm talking about all of these 9 countries. So they could design it or repackage it in the way they wanted at the various levels which was necessary. And so that actually required quite a bit of engagement, very difficult when you have different time zones. We are looking at something like 5 time zones, 33 million square kilometers away, so many different network connections. It was challenging to actually have a time where everyone could be online, where we were actually looking at the module that we had, and we would say, okay, what type of pictures do you think is more specific context? What type of introduction should we need? What type of language, at what level this should be, so that it is attractive for the youths to go and get engaged. It's not something that we should actually pick from a textbook and use. It has to be conceptualized so that they are engaged or they are interested in doing it. The other thing we have to keep in mind, we are looking at the group which should have been dropouts, which should have other additional issues and challenges due to which they are not getting trained. So how do we keep them engaged? So that was the reason we had to get down and share information and get information from the trainers, because they were the ones who knew what the gap was and what the students needed. So the first phase was engagement with the stakeholders at the region level itself, and where we actually involved the desk research and multiple consultations. It was very challenging because we are still talking about lockdown period. It was very difficult to actually find. Affordability of internet was an issue in many places. We had to also provide them the data so that they could, I'm talking about the trainers, I'm not at all talking about students at all. I'm talking about the trainers who didn't have money to actually get funds or use the money for internet itself. And then we had to discuss with the agencies as well, because we are going to then talk to these providers to see if this toolkit could be used in their own schools. In many of these countries, the TVET programs have also been closed down due to politics, due to funding, due to many other things. Again, in Fiji, there was a time when we had the government who had actually taken over the training, the what you could say metal work or woodwork or that section of the schools. and converted them into TVET training institutes and later closed it. They are collecting dust or they are rusting away. And we have a major a vacuum where skilled laborers are concerned. Who is training them? There is no one training. So we had to actually engage with the government. We also had to engage with the schools, the NGOs, and the churches that we say are also the providers. And that was the aim, to design the right toolkit, to design it right as it should be. So we had the second phase where we actually developed the online toolkit, and based on the feedback, an online toolkit was designed, and it reflects, as I said, the Pacific context itself. It had to be in the language that could be understood by most. And we had to be very mindful that English is a second language in most of these situations. So in the third phase, the trainers had to access and apply the toolkit, and this is where they actually used the toolkit to tailor make it in the situation or in the place they were in. And we provided the support for 9 such TVET institutions, and the institutions improved their capacity, deliver the quality training, and able to increase the access to tools or the skills. And as I have said, Montfort Boys Town, Institute in Tonga, others were some of those which used this in promoting and trying to create a pathway for the youths in gaining some kind of skills necessary. And then the other one that we actually went on ahead was on the professional development of young teachers in distance learning, because we realized that when COVID happened, when we had to go online, there was a big gap. We are talking about, in the first place, the diversity in terms of the infrastructure itself in the countries, as well as where the internet itself is concerned. And of course, primary and secondary school teachers were in most cases face-to-face teachers. Again, in tertiary institutions, we also had that issue. So there was a need to actually upskill the teachers and the young teachers, and the teacher training institutes also agreed with us that there was a need to actually provide that type of skill development for these teachers. So that's what we did. We provided those courses which could actually give them the, what you could say, a digital skill or e-confidence necessary for the teachers to then use the online material in the classroom. So this was using OER for, and then we had these 4 courses, assessment skills, 21 participated and completed. One thing any of us who have been in academia would understand, getting a very high completion rate for online free courses or MOOCs is a big issue. We don't get, in the beginning, you'll find so many students will be enrolled, but at the end, a few will just complete the course because it's free. If it is not with accreditation, it is not part of a program, then the interest isn't there. However, we could say it was still possible to get quite a few completing. 52 participants completed the courses. It was offered from the call site, and we did the pre and post surveys. And there was the need for more on the digital literacy, on web literacy itself. And then we had the digital skills for OER sharing. And this is where we targeted, again, the regional country ministries of education contact to see where the gaps were, which were the young teachers who needed the kind of confidence and training necessary. And of course, you would see that 269 registered and only 2 completed. And one of those was that we need to actually provide some form of a cohort-based session, because everyone still felt the need for a face-to-face session if necessary. The other thing that we have now begun is, instead of using an online platform, we have started using Moodle as a learning management system for offering these courses, because nearly all the countries use Moodle as a learning platform, whether it is in a secondary school and the institutions, and the teachers are familiar with that rather than going on cloud or some other form. So what are the regional collaborations that we have? In order to actually provide the kind of an understanding and the need that the region has, we are trying to provide the support for youths, people with disability, and also where e-education is concerned. Last year, we actually ran one of these meetings, we would say, which actually showed the number of players in the region we had who were all doing the same things, but not talking to each other. So there was so much overlap. So there was a need to basically come on a same level or same ground to find out what is someone doing. How can we then ensure that that is not a repetition? Because you would find the same TVET trainer being contacted by Commonwealth of Learning, again by UNESCO, again by some other MFET or DFET to say, hey, we want to pick your brain on what is missing or what needs to be done. And the person would say, but hey, I have already provided this information. And then, so we needed to come to one platform to actually understand. And this actually led to the second similar meeting we had in Auckland in March this year, because that was where the youths, the ministries of education, the NGO partners all came together again as the second phase of where we had actually left last year to say, these are the gaps. These are what is necessary. And I'm not just talking about trying to provide support for youths. I'm talking about the overall gap which was in the region and what needs to be done. And that is where I would leave this for now. So we have also done a bit of research to improving the learning outcomes. And you would see that we have conducted some of these. There is a high usage of internet in the Pacific Island countries itself. The commonly used device is interestingly mobile phone, and we are actually developing one of the apps for the science programs. And the quality, and of course, there is a need for some form of quality matters evaluation and ensuring that the quality is there, so it is consistent. And then we have found that male learners have large ownership of ICT learning devices and use more data compared to female. Even in a classroom or even in a household, we noticed that it was easier for male students to actually borrow the phone from the parent to actually do something, but not so much for a daughter. And then, of course, the need to upskill programs and courses in ODFL was very crucial. A report was created and published, and the significance of adopting and focused mentoring approach to enhance learning outcomes. There is a need to improve digital skills, cost-effective technology solutions, and mentorship program. And this is again for all, not just youths itself. Next one. And these are some of the sites where you can get more information on what we are doing in the region. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chan. I think it's so fitting and so important that we understand exactly how we can leverage the propensity that a lot of these distance learning technologies can have and a transformative impact and effort that it can form an education effort. So we're really honored to have had you being a part of our presentation today. So at this time, we will move into a more interactive element of our session. And in doing so, I want us to participate in answering, and well, more so asking, but answering as well, some questions, both online and in cyberspace. So you see, was that a question? Okay, sorry, signaling happening here. But we definitely want for you to engage with our panelists as they are here with us. This is a great opportunity for you to interface, to get direct answers. I know we focus mainly on the UK and the Pacific, but certainly, as I would have mentioned earlier, there are some best practices, there are some key nuggets of information that remain the same and are, I would say, the denominator of no matter where you are or your youth work finds itself. All right, so just before we head into the interactive element, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Chandra Motion, and then we'll head into our interactive portion of the conversation. Sorry, he is from the Institute of Commonwealth Studies, and we're bringing to us some more information on that. Okay.
Okay, I've been told it's 15 minutes. I'll try to stick to 15 minutes. I'll try to come from a slightly different angle and focus more on the Commonwealth by pan-Commonwealth initiatives and in this area, and also try to redefine the idea of youth work and how it is seen, both in the UK and which has been a very interesting paper about the history of youth work and how it was perceived and so on. So what I'm going to argue is here, the title given was towards professionalization and credentialization of youth work education and training. My basic premise is that youth work has got to be professionalized. Much of youth work is driven by enthusiasm and goodwill, by a sense of responsibility, and to a large extent, it is uncoordinated in this, or rather unrecognized, in the sense that much of it is not actually captured and given credentials. And we notice that the credentials are very important because it allows portability, it recognizes the work, and professionalization also gives a pan-Commonwealth angle to youth work, because you need to be talking about youth work, the parity of youth work, the impact it has on the local community, not only in one Commonwealth community, but also in other Commonwealth countries and other regions as well. So my premise is, my basic argument is that we need to think about professionalization and what is the role of higher education in this. So the key points I'm going to cover are the need for professionalized youth work to transform enthusiasm, policy, and practice into sustainable and objective processes. So it's very important that it is sustainable, that's long term, and also it's something which is objective and evidence-based. And my second argument is that it has got to be underpinned by evidence-based recognition and validation of achievements through appropriate institutional structures. Now, I want it to be acknowledged by institutional structures, not just a community. Community recognition is very important, that sustains it. But at the same time, in the long run, it has to be sustained by appropriate institutions and institutional structures. And that is where the higher education institutions come very useful. The third point is higher education in the Commonwealth can play a significant role in professionalization, because higher education is, in a way, equipped for professionalizing and recognizing and converting experience into professionalization, and also at the same time providing credentials of different nature, of either it could be degrees, which is very commonly seen, but also these days, there are other forms of recognition in terms of badges, in terms of micro credentials, in terms of different forms of recognition of the expertise. So we need to see how the universities have gone into these alternative or the new recognitions, not just traditional courses, but MOOCs, for example. And open TVET courses. So some of them may not be something which are in the same category as the old degree courses or diploma courses, etc. And again, we have to recognize that there are various exit points that have come up. Yesterday, I was talking to people from Sri Lanka Open University and how they have structured their degree program into 3 levels. First year you complete and you leave, you get a certificate. Second year you complete and leave, you get a diploma. Third year you complete and leave, you get a degree. And so you find that there are sort of different exit points that are being created, both at the year level and also at a term level, so to speak. So those are very important because that sort of flexibility in terms of recognizing the youth work is very crucial. Then, how can universities help? Universities have got these things: existing organizational capacity. They are the institutions created for formalizing learning. And the formal recognition of learning is traditionally been done in the last century or 2 centuries ago through institutions, the universities, or I should be careful, more than 800 years, Oxford University, people would say, or Bologna would say that, even before that, or Nalanda would say from India 2000 years ago. So I'm not putting any timeline on that, but certainly the idea that the learning is institutionalized goes back long in history. Buddha taught, but then there were other universities which came up. And so those structures have to be taken into account. So universities are the places to go for professionalization, and they have the existing capacity, as I would come back into it. And the second point is that universities are a part of an ecosystem of excellence in youth work, in knowledge creation, in knowledge distribution, knowledge transmission, so to speak. And the third one is the universities, as they are structured within the Commonwealth, can help in national level, regional, and pan. We just now seen how in pan Commonwealth, how regional level in Pacific operates, and then our pan Commonwealth collaboration. Then I'm going to go through the first points, why universities are the best places. They can create communities of learning, and in 5 stages. A, in terms of conceptualization, using different theoretical models, incorporating time and space, both within one country, across time frame, 1940s to 1990s or 2000. And then the second point, curriculum training and development. They have the capacity to combine disciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches to models, and they have dedicated institutions within their framework, like teacher training colleges. They have the infrastructure to do it, and not to use that would not be very helpful. Then they have the delivery of curriculum. They have the physical and human resources for face-to-face, blended and online delivery, especially in post-COVID situation. They created so much of infrastructure, poured money into this creation of these particular structures, so it would be quite useful across the Commonwealth, the UK in particular, or in other countries as well. Then the other point is about the assessment of curriculum. Who does curriculum assessment? Who is qualified to assess the learning process? Universities have been doing it for a long time. And more recently, they have been doing, I myself did an action research with using self-peer and expert assessment. It was more an assessment of myself. I will quickly tell about this anecdote. I thought, I had years of experience of teaching, taught in different countries in Africa, in Asia, Europe, UK. But then there was one student, when I did this project, an action research project, it was to bring together the assessment of the same work by the student himself or herself, by the peer group, and by the expert or myself, the teacher. Then when the results were analyzed, then I found that there was big variation. For one student, the peer group had given massively high marks, out of sync with any of the other kind of thing. I was wondering what happened. So I went back to the group and then asked, why did you give? They had to give everybody had to write why they gave this mark. Then when I analyzed that, I found this student of mine used to sit in the front row of most of my lectures. And then she got the highest. And I was wondering why that student and not others. And then it emerged that they said, this student is deaf, and she followed all your lectures by lip reading. And she followed her lip reading, and her answers have been good, which we evaluated. So we are recognizing that effort. So in other words, the universities have an atmosphere in which such experimentation can take place, and such assessment can be much more nuanced. And then finally, validation through, if you can go a bit less, please. And then finally, not only the assessment is probably the easy part, then it has to be validated. Whose words will people take? Whose words will the governments listen? Whose words will employers listen to? Or even community will listen to? They are the quality assurance mechanisms, like the different organizations which give professional benchmarking, valuation codes, etc. So the universities work with these qualification frameworks, and then therefore they have a potential to contribute to youth work in a new way, or in a newly defined way. I'll come to that in a minute. Then the last point is number 2, which is the higher education can contribute to strengthening of an ecosystem of excellence in youth work. It's not just what they do, but how they contribute to an ecosystem, how they can be a part of a system, and that they can do. Say, for example, National Youth Agency, it has a quality mark, and it assesses some of the programs, if officials are given grades. So universities can work with that particular sort of a setup. Sometimes universities' syllabuses incorporate professional organizations' requirements. For example, some lawyers organizations say, or accountancy organization, these are the areas we want people to be qualified in. So the universities can build that into the syllabus, can work with the employers in devising curricula. So they can contribute not only to their own in their own capacity, but also create an ecosystem. For example, National Youth Agency. And please, I'm skipping that because the conference is being organized by them. There are lots of leaflets. You can pick up anything on that. Then second, yes, no one below, please. Yeah. Sorry, further down. And the second one is the curriculum framework, another framework that you could use, curriculum framework of Commonwealth, which created for SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. And that curriculum framework tells how you can teach, train people within all the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So if you can use that as part of youth training, then you have a huge range of skills, huge range of people to be trained. Then the next one, please. Then sorry, before that, there's one, anyway, so before that, there's also another thing called UK Professional Standards Framework, UPSPF, and an institution called Advanced HE, which used to be called Higher Education Framework. If you go down further, please. Not for that. Sorry, I put it on there. One more. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Stop here. UK Professional Standards Framework. This framework, for example, it values individuals, core knowledge creation, etc. Most UK universities use this. They give fellowships. They got different levels of professional recognition, fellows, senior fellows, professional fellows. And it is not only in the UK, now it has gone abroad as well. In Oman or some other countries also use this particular framework. So professionalization of teaching, higher education teaching is something which you can hear, and these particular things can will be extended to youth work if a university is offering youth work programs. So, or even otherwise, some of the transferable skills will be covered by this. So please, so in other words, my key point going back to this is that universities can contribute to ecosystems, but also they can also provide this. They can also work with this with these frameworks. Then the last point is this. My 15 minutes are nearly there. Commonwealth and international dimensions. Now, there are 2 or 3 examples I would like to give. The first one, I was involved personally with the youth section of the Commonwealth Secretariat, and I was asked to do this consultancy, scoping and conceptualizing the development of consortium of academic institutions to advance youth work education and training in the Commonwealth. This report was used to develop the Commonwealth Consortium at that point. And please note the other things now. We worked with Commonwealth Secretariat, which provided the backbones, funding, etc., and lobbying or advocacy with the ministers in order to approve that. And then the University of West Indies prepared, or they allowed us to use the coursework they had prepared for youth works. And then the Commonwealth of Learning provided the infrastructure in terms of developing it into a platform, into a sort of a link between institutions, in communication terms, from one to one, one to many, and many to many. So the idea was that this consortium would be able to operate at one-to-one, individual institution to individual institution, nation to nation, or one to many, one country providing a lot more, or many to many. And so it's very important that we could use that particular facility, that particular potential that Commonwealth provides for youth work and experiences. This one is this is the way it is funded. In these days, when councils don't have money, if you're talking about UK, it's quite funding is very centralized. The councils less and less money, and therefore, as you pointed out, there are some limitations coming from that. Where is the money these days? Money doesn't disappear, money reappears. And the money reappears in the form of Global Challenges Research Fund or Global Challenges for addressing global challenges. And universities can bid for huge amounts of money for global challenge projects. And then you can find that that many of them, they are funded by a whole range of partners of the UK research community in humanities, in biotechnology, in engineering, physical sciences, economic and social research council, medical research council. So there is a particular collection of funding that's available. And a lot of these projects employ young people. A lot of these projects employ community outreach. And that is where I find a space for youth work. This community outreach that is linked to anxieties, which was in the previous session, somebody was talking about climate anxiety is driving a lot of young people to come to some of these programs. And that particular student anxiety, government readiness to fund, and capacity of the institutions can create a fertile ground for reformulating, reimagining youth work, not in a very traditional terms of specified courses, but in terms of engagement and in more complex and nuanced ways. The last one. And this one, Association of Commonwealth Universities, which has 500 university institutions and members, they also go into, in a big way, they're into climate resilience and challenge programs, which are South-South as well as North-South programs. So you can find that these particular programs are also very helpful. So to sum up, okay, just go on. The last point, because I can't resist the temptation of being narcissist in some ways. Click this. Yeah, this one is better. Okay. You can probably, some of you can recognize this building, Commonwealth Secretariat building. And these are the students who have graduated. They're from the University of Putra, Malaysia. They recently graduated with diplomas in youth work. And then please go down. And then they visited the place where I'm placed, Institute of Commonwealth Studies. So from there, a little bit further down. This is unnecessary. So here you find that they have met the dean of the faculty, dean of the school, and negotiated, or I do not know what the contents of the letter was, but there was some sort of institutional link that was being formed in order to encourage people to come over and spend for research time. And this picture is with the Pro Vice Chancellor, International Learning and Teaching, University of London. University of London operates a huge distance learning program. It's been doing that for 150 years. They offer courses through online, supported by regional centers. So this university wanted to put their face-to-face learning material onto an online course. They wanted to convert it into a course. And so the university, again, is subject to some, some offers, some exceptions, etc. But certainly, she explained what University of London has been doing and how they could support them from moving from face-to-face to online youth work diploma program. Okay, fine. What I was going to leave you with is an image of something that, I live in Canterbury in Kent. And okay, this is, okay, you can leave with this one. Canterbury Sustainable. Here, the universities, there are 3 universities in Canterbury. They collaborate with the community organizations. You go to the first page. And this is SDG Forum. If you go down from that, I'll put the name here forward here. And here you will find that Helen Clark, Prime Minister of New Zealand, United Nations Development Program Administrator. And you find that she was also being provided the forward to this initiative. And I wrote a piece within this for SDG 17, which is a partnerships part of SDGs. So what we find is that there is a sort of a new think around the clock, around the block, which is SDGs, climate change, which is global challenges. So these are the areas where youth work has a potential to develop in its new avatar. I stop.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have unfortunately reached the end of this or second session or third session. I've lost count. It's just been filled with such sagacity and intelligence. It's somewhat hard to keep up, but I want to express my unfeigned thanks to Dr. Frank, Dr. Cullen, as well as Dr. Radley, and my last and by no means least, Dr. Chambohan, for their excellent presentation and certainly to what we've done here today. And so I just want to again thank you all for your dedication to advancing the field of youth work. And certainly we are here in part because of your efforts. I just want to encourage you to keep the fire burning and to continue the good work of what you're doing. Unfortunately, I really want to do a Q&A and some interaction, but we are at the end of our segment. I don't want to cut down on the most important segment, the break. So until then, you know, our presenters are around. They'll be here for the remainder of the day, and I assume they'll also be here tomorrow. So please, I know they have their cards and other ways you can get their contact information. Please liaise with them, and they'd be happy to continue the conversation further with the agenda. So thank you all so much, and it's break time.